If you thrive on stress and enjoy pain, you'll definitely want to consider setting up RevenueCat in your FlutterFlow application. No, but seriously, our businesses do need to collect revenue, and in-app purchases are a great way to do that. This video is a step-by-step guide in setting up RevenueCat in FlutterFlow, and while it's not the hardest thing in the world, it does have a few moving parts, and it might take a little bit of time to wrap your head around. Before we start, one really fundamental caveat to understand about RevenueCat is that you can't use it with web apps. It'll literally break the web app because the SDK will just throw null errors everywhere. This also makes FlutterFlow preview mode worthless. But that's not a RevenueCat or a FlutterFlow issue, it's the nature of in-app purchases, which are conceptually super powerful, but they also only work on mobile apps. With that in mind, grab a cup of coffee, let's dive in. So when you create a new RevenueCat account, you're going to have this onboarding screen. And the first thing we'll do is set up our iOS integration. And for that, we're going to need to grab an API key from App Store Connect. So I'll go ahead and get started. And then I just hit this button for going to Team Keys. Now, it's a good idea to make a new API key, and we'll just call this one RevenueCat key. And the access that we want is App Manager, and I'll generate that. Now you can only download these keys once, so make sure to save them in a safe place. And when I hit download, I'm going to download a .p8 file. And when I've done that, all I have to do is drop the .p8 file into here in RevenueCat. I also need the issuer ID, so I'll go ahead and copy that from App Store Connect, and I can drop it in here and validate keys. Perfect, so that's App Store Connect set up. Now my project happens to be called Palmas, so I'll pop that in. And because I've set up the API key, I can actually see that this bundle ID is already available to me because I have this set up in the App Store Connect already. Next step. As a next step in App Store Connect, I need to go to in-app purchase and I need to generate another one of these key files. So this one I'll call something like RevenueCat in-app purchase key, and I'll generate that. Again, I'll download it and keep it somewhere safe, and I'll drop it into the RevenueCat onboarding flow. Now it's time to define our products. For now, let's just go with the default, and we can always play around with this later. Now FlutterFlow is going to take care of the SDK for us, so we can go ahead and explore the dashboard. In your own time, have a look at the RevenueCat dashboard and the default products and entitlements that we just created. I am going to go through the concepts of entitlements, packages, offerings later in the video, but first we have some setup to do in App Store Connect. Conceptually, it's really important to know where your revenue is being gathered. If you were using Stripe, for example, your revenue is literally in Stripe, and Stripe pays this out to your bank account. RevenueCat is not the same. It doesn't hold your money. It's actually App Store Connect that collects and holds your revenue. So first head to the business section in App Store Connect. You'll see I've actually completed a lot of these forms, and you'll need to do the same. You have to add a bank account, fill out the tax forms, and everything else here. I'm not US based, so I use the W8 BEN form. This will be different for you if you are US based. Any of the AI models will give you guidance if there are parts you don't understand in these forms, but this is obligatory and you need to complete it in full or you won't get any further with this process. Once that's out of the way, we need to create products. Down here in the monetization section, you can create in-app purchases and subscriptions. In-app purchases can be consumables or non-consumables. A consumable is a one-time but repeatable purchase, like a power-up in a game or usage credits for AI models, while a non-consumable is a one-time but unrepeatable purchase, like a lifetime access. Then you have subscriptions, which is the one that I'll concentrate on here. The example I'll use is having tiers in my app. So we'll have a basic tier, a pro tier, and then a higher tier. We'll call it the platinum tier. First, you'll need a subscription group. Having several subscription groups has a use case, like if you had entirely separate business models or audiences within the same app, but most commonly you'll only have one. So all the different tiers or monthly versus annual stuff happens in the same subscription group. So in this subscription group, which I've just called Palmas subscriptions, I have a bunch of products. Subscriptions are just a subset of products. A subscription is a product, but a product can also be something else, like an in-app purchase. And it's here that we lay out all the plans that we can offer. Products are the base unit, so if you want to offer an annual membership and also a monthly membership for the same plan, you make two separate independent products. I've already laid out a few products here, so we've got the Pro and Platinum plans, but we still need the yearly plan for Platinum, so let's create that. You'll want to enforce a consistent naming convention, so I've done something here like Palmas Pro and then the price of the product and then the period. So for this next one, it's going to be Palmas Plat and we'll have the price and it'll be 1 year. So I'll paste that in here. We'll go for 1 year, Palmas Plat, 99 cents. And then the reference name will be Palmas Platinum for 1 year. So I'll create that subscription and the duration will be a year. Then I need to set up what countries it's going to be available in. Then I need to set the price. We'll just go for 99 cents, but make sure obviously that you're setting your prices in the way that you want. And then you also have the ability to set the price in all of the different countries and with different currencies. So obviously, depending on where your app is available, you want to make sure that the price is appropriate in each country and in each currency. Localization is actually more about the display name and the description. It's called localization because this display name and description might be different in different languages. In English, I'm going to call it Palmas Platinum for 1 year, and that's what's going to be displayed to the users. You'll also want to put some thought into the description. Here, I'll just go for 1 year of Palmas Platinum. Okay, I'll add that and the product is nearly done. I also have to include a screenshot. The screenshot is actually just for the reviewer, but it does need to be present and it does need to be the right size, 1290 pixels by 2796. So I'll pop that in there. Cool, and then I'll hit save. Along with your subscriptions, you also just need to add localization for the subscription group, so you can add extra languages here. Okay, and that's our subscription set up. Remember, this is the source of truth for your subscriptions. So when making edits, you'll do the edits here first, and then you can import those into RevenueCat. Okay, now we have to talk about how we're going to do development and testing. As I said earlier, we can't just boot up preview mode in FlutterFlow because it's web-based. So we need to set all of this up on a real device. Now, you actually can do this with a simulator by making use of a tool called StoreKit. There's a good video by James NoCode that you can check out, but I'm not going to repeat that method here. Instead, I'm going to move a step closer to production and use something called a sandbox. This sandbox approach does force me to test the actual purchases on a real device, but that's actually no big deal because I can still use the simulator to do active development on the UI and the data from RevenueCat will get piped in. But more on that later in the video. The reason I bring this up now is because there's one more thing to do in App Store Connect before we're done with it, and that's to create a Sandbox account. A Sandbox account will let you test the subscription without making real purchases. Now, at this point, Apple will try their best to intentionally sabotage you, or at least that's how it feels. The Sandbox tester needs to have an Apple account, but also never have used it, and basically to not be a real person, but also kind of a real person. Anyway, the process is to go to account.apple.com and create a new Apple account. If you don't have a fresh email that has no Apple account associated with it, you can try to use the GML convention of using pluses, which may or may not work. You'll need a real phone number, but if you try this too many times without success, they'll block you. After you create the new Apple account, do not use it to log in anywhere in the Apple ecosystem like in iCloud. Just go straight here again in App Store Connect and add it as a test account after it's been created. Just be careful with this and you'll be fine. I was not careful and it was a hassle to do this very simple thing. In RevenueCat, there is some terminology that's worth learning. We created products in App Store Connect. Products get wrapped in packages, where packages and products have a one-to-one relationship. So the package might be something like the Pro subscription for 1 year. On the paywall, you see these packages. The collection of packages that you see on the paywall is collectively called the offering. You might just have a default offering, like a choice between Pro Annual, Pro Monthly, Platinum Annual, etc. But you could create another offering that has a special discount for the week and swap it out on the paywall. Then after that week, you could swap it back to the default. Entitlements then are more of an internal thing that tells the app what this user can see. If a user had a Pro Monthly sub or a Pro Annual sub, it doesn't make a difference to the app functionality. They're a Pro user. So in FlutterFlow, if we had a screen in the app that only Pro users are supposed to see, it's the entitlement that controls this. You would just assign both the monthly and the annual membership to the Pro entitlement. If you've gotten this far, you're over the hump, smooth sailing from here. Sort of. Now, back in RevenueCat, I've removed the default products so we can just start from scratch. First, we'll grab the products that we have in App Store Connect. App Store Connect is the source of truth for these, so conveniently we can just import them. These here are the ones that I've created but haven't imported yet, so I can just hit import. So we've got our products and now we want to add some entitlements. The first one is our Pro tier, so I'll just call it Pro tier, and I'll give it a description. By the way, I'm aware that some of my descriptions and pricing are a bit weird and generic. This just isn't a real app, but do make sure that you put some thought into these things in your case. The other entitlement is going to be the Platinum one. Give it a description, and I'll add that one. Now I need to add products to the entitlements. And the idea here is that this is like a gate. So if I were to attach this month pro product to this pro entitlement, I'd also want to add the 1 year product. And that means that the app doesn't have to care whether the user is on the yearly plan or the monthly plan. They just know that they can unlock the pro content. So I'll attach those. And then the platinum tier is slightly different in that, yes, we'll be adding the platinum products, but because the platinum has everything that pro has, we can actually add all of the products. So I can just select everything here and attach them. This means that a platinum user gets access to all the pro features as well as the platinum features. Okay, and then we want to do the offerings. There's actually only going to be one offering, and I'm going to call it the default offering. So the offering is like everything in the paywall. But if I wanted to have like a holiday special or some kind of sale, I could create a new offering and it would show a completely different paywall to the user. And after the sale is over, I could then revert it back again. Now I'm going to add packages to the offer, and that's each item on the paywall. In this case, there are some identifiers and they're based on time, and this will actually be available in FlutterFlow as well. If you only have one monthly offering, let's say, you can actually use the monthly identifier and RevenueCat will do some things automatically for you. This actually isn't obligatory though. I could just do a custom identifier, and it just so happens that I have to. The reason being that I can't use monthly twice. And I need monthly twice because I have a monthly plan for Pro and also for Platinum. So the product that I want is the month of Palmas Pro. There it is. Okay. And now I have 3 more to go. So I'll add another package and I'll add all of the other tiers as they appear on the paywall. Okay, so now I've created my offering. It's got all of the products that my app offers and they'll all appear on the same paywall. So that's RevenueCat set up, and now I can head on over to FlutterFlow. Okay, so over here in FlutterFlow, I've created just a basic app. It's got like a login page. It also has a page for the Pro tier, so you can only see this page if you're on the Pro membership, and a Platinum tier, you can only see this page if you're on Platinum membership. There's also a paywall where you can see the offer, and here I'll have all of the packages that will come from RevenueCat. Now, obviously the first thing that we'll want to do is go to settings in FlutterFlow and go to the RevenueCat integration. And the API key that you add in here is this one from RevenueCat, this guy here under API keys. So of course, there's also a Play Store key. I'm not going to go through the Android deployment as it's a little bit much for a video like this, but drop a comment on the video if you'd like to see another one that goes through the Play Store process. And here you can choose to enable debug logging, which is helpful, but make sure you turn it off again for going into production. You can also load the data on the fly or on the launch of the app, whatever you prefer. Now you might notice that I'm actually on the web version of FlutterFlow. I normally use this because I run Linux, and so I don't have access to FlutterFlow desktop. But unfortunately, this isn't going to fly, so I'm going to have to bring out my Mac for this. And unfortunately, if you don't have a Mac, this gets very tricky because that would probably mean using TestFlight for every little change that you're going to make, which might be unreasonable. But the thing is, even with a Mac, you do still have 2 choices. What I found is that when you are testing the subscription, that's actually buying the subscription, you do need a physical device if you're not using StoreKit. And as I say, I wanted to use the Sandbox tester because it's a bit closer to production, and you're probably going to need to do this anyway before you actually send your app live. And even though I do have a physical device hooked up here, where I can do the actual purchasing, I found that for displaying the data, such as the paywall, a simulator actually works fine. Anyway, before I test the purchase, I'm just going to show you what I've done here. I've set up some actions for the Pro members tier, and I've left the actions off for Platinum. So we'll go through that in a second, but in this case, I'll just show you very quickly what the action flow looks like. Now you can get this from the FlutterFlow docs. It's basically just making the paywall action happen, which checks off the Pro tier. That's the name of the entitlement. And then FlutterFlow can check whether the user is entitled and then do the right thing. In this case, it's to navigate to the Pro tier page. If not, then we'll open the bottom sheet and we'll go for the paywall. Now, the paywall is sort of a representation of your offering. And so you have all of the packages on the paywall, and inside each package, you can actually take data from RevenueCat and display it. And to do that, I'm using something called current offering because we're only going to have one offering at any given time. And so I'm actually using the package identifier that we set up in RevenueCat, the custom package identifier. Anyway, as I said, I've tunneled into my Mac Mini from my Linux box, and I've hooked that up to my actual physical iPhone. So when I load up the app on my iPhone, I can try this paywall flow by tapping extra content. And this gives me the paywall, and then I can choose to buy Pro. And you'll notice that it shows the Sandbox account in the top left, and on the bottom it says the email address of the Sandbox account. So I know this is going to be a fake purchase. It's not going to actually cost me any money. So I can hit subscribe. On a real device, you'd already be signed in, so you don't get asked for your password again. But in this case, I will get asked for my password, sign in, and there it is. I got the subscription. Okay, I'm good to go. So now I should have the Pro tier. And this means that when I go for extra content, it will give me the gated page. Okay, so at this point on my device, I've got the extra content, I've got the Pro tier, I don't have the Platinum tier. So let's set up the action flow for the Platinum tier. I can go to RevenueCat down at the bottom and go for paywall. And actually, I'll open up the action flow editor for this. So this is Platinum. So the entitlement ID, I'm looking for the identifier for the Platinum tier, and that's this. It's just a string Platinum tier. Paste it in there, and that's going to check the entitlement. And that means I can add a conditional, and the conditional is going to be user has RevenueCat entitlement. That's the only option. The true path will actually just be a navigation. So I can navigate to the gated Platinum tier page, and then the false value is going to be the paywall itself. So that's going to be a bottom sheet, show it, and the component I want is the paywall component that I built. And I like to set enable drag and use the safe area. Cool, so now we have to set up the paywall itself. So in the Platinum tier, we'll want the title. And bear in mind that I actually do have monthly and annual subscriptions for Platinum and for Pro. And that's just a UI choice. What I would probably do is I would set up a switch between annual and monthly, and then these would reflect that value. So you can, of course, just play around with the UI in the paywall, and you have these RevenueCat objects that you can make use of. You could use tabs or conditional builders for the annual versus monthly, but generally you're always going to be using this RevenueCat object, current offering. And then you have these options, and the options come with the pre-built ones in terms of time that RevenueCat gives you. But actually, as I showed you before, I can't use any of these because I had 2 monthly offerings, so I'm going to use package by identifier. And by the way, try not to get tripped up on this. It's actually the package identifier in the offering, as opposed to the package ID itself that you would find in products. So I want the Platinum monthly tier, so that's the package identifier there, and I can paste that into here. And so RevenueCat's the only option beyond that, and then it's just going to be whatever data you want to display. So for this, I'll have the title, and then I can actually just copy this entire variable, and I can put it into, for example, the price string, paste it and use the price string, and then the description as well. Just paste that in here and use description. So now the RevenueCat data is being displayed on the paywall. So now we'll do the get platinum purchase button. I just need to add an action, and we'll go into the action flow editor again and search for RevenueCat. And this time it's going to be the purchase action. By the way, the restore purchases action, you can find this in the docs as well, but basically it's a useful action to have in case the user reinstalls the apps or is using different phones and they can't get their purchases back. So it's good to include this action as a button in settings as well. Now, again, the package ID is coming from the offering, not from the actual package, which is a bit confusing. But in this case, it's going to be Platinum tier monthly. That's going to be the ID. And then you have to name the action output variable. In the docs, I think it's did purchase. I'll call this did purchase Platinum. And then there's a conditional that checks that the purchase completed properly. So I'll go to action outputs, did purchase Platinum. And then it's good to have something like an information dialog or something that will happen in the app after the purchase works. So I can just go for alert dialog, informational dialog. I can say purchase was successful. And then in the false track, you can use a snack bar or another dialog, whatever you prefer. This is more to do with UX than it actually is to do with RevenueCat at this point. So just make sure that you're consistent and that everything ties together from a UX point of view. Okay, cool. So that's the action flows. Okay, so I'm going to wrap the video up there. Obviously, subscriptions is a huge topic, and I couldn't possibly cover it all in a video of this length. And of course, so much of what happens is also very dependent on what you want to do and what your UX demands. But I'll just leave you with a couple of points. The first one, of course, is test, test, test. You've got to try to test this as much as you can. Make sure that the subscription tiers are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and try it out with a couple of users before you roll it out fully to production. I also want to mention that this whole RevenueCat integration so far has worked independent of the auth system. And that's actually crucial. It's actually linked to the Apple account. So if, say, a user were to log out on this iPhone and then log in as a different account on the same phone, that has important implications for the RevenueCat subscription. And there are ways of tackling that, but it goes beyond the scope of this video. And also, of course, I've only dealt with iOS in this video, and you're probably going to want to look into Play Store subscriptions as well. And it's a similar process. It's different for the Play Store, but the integration with FlutterFlow and RevenueCat is the same. And then finally, you need to think about your database, whether you're using Firestore or Xano or Supabase, whatever it is. Chances are that there's certain data that you're going to want to gate in terms of your API. You don't want to just be giving away premium data just because a user has figured out how to use the Supabase REST API or something like that. So depending on what database you use, you'll need to set up some kind of scheme that knows something about the subscription of that user. It's a complex topic and it does take a little bit of time to get your head around it. But if there's a topic that you really want me to cover in a future video around all of this, drop a comment onto the video and let me know. Alright, you made it to the end. Well done. Odds are that didn't go quite as smoothly as you'd hope, so pat on the back. Check out keely.studio if you want to get in touch and work with me directly. And thanks so much for watching.